illusory material opulence. So it's not such an advancement. Of course, those who are really like Prabhupada and like that, but also many devotees in the Eastern movement, very advanced devotees, see actually how they are completely detached from material opulence. If they don't have it, they're completely happy. We're reading about Prabhupada in 50 years ago. Prabhupada had nothing. He was in one sense not different from all the derelicts and bums and the Bowery among whom he was living. He had as little as they had, in terms of money and shelter and like that. Prabhupada was living in I was living with Dr. Misra, just an acquaintance, a fake acquaintance, and Prabhupada's, he had no shelter, so he had to even somewhat humiliate himself and live under the, take a room and live under the conditions of this yoga teacher who didn't even allow him to preach or anything like that. And Prabhupada had no support, nothing. He was living in a room that didn't even have windows. But Prabhupada was happy. There wasn't obviously other occasions also. Prabhupada was offered, and Prabhupada had actually, some years later, Krishna manifested so much opulence to Prabhupada, but he was always unaffected by the whole thing. He had actually millions of dollars he was moving, and he had thousands of devotees who would obey his order, obey his command completely, and he had rooms everywhere, he had temples. Often devotees, they would rent luxurious hotel rooms where probably he would stay. He would be brought in limousines and Rolls Royces and like that. Prabhupada was unaffected by the whole thing. Completely unaffected. And when he had a chance to go and live in his hut in Mayapur, or I think also Bhubaneswara, Gaura Govinda Maharaj, that time there was no temple in Bhubaneswara. He was just living in a hut. Prabhupada came also. He was offered a hut. Still straw. Prabhupada was happy. As happy. He was, but he actually really liked it. It was much nicer to live in a simple hut like this. It's not at all attracted to opulence in any way. Or, but also, like, right now we have, like, Radhanath Swami is getting a lot of attention and like that in many places in the world. And as far as he's also complete. That's, he's getting that also because he seems quite detached from everything. There was a TV program where he was interviewed, and the interview was talking about it. He was sitting on a, he used to sit on a stone in the middle of the Ganges and meditate. I don't know if anyone read his book? Everyone read his book? Did you? No? Okay, so he was there meditating in the Ganges like that, on a stone by himself, and then the interviewer was saying, now you're sitting here in a chair in front of the cameras, and millions of people are watching you. How do you feel? He said, it's just another stone. Just like another stone, I think he said, this is just like sitting on another stone in the same river. The river of time. So that's also, that's one advantage when it comes to it. Actually, these things, they simply come and go. We're sitting in the middle of the river of time, and sometimes we're kings, sometimes we're paupers, sometimes we are famous, sometimes nobody knows about us, sometimes successful, sometimes we're failures. These things come and go. And as Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita, in the purport of the 13th chapter, that in this material world you can completely happy or completely unhappy, isn't it? How does it like? You can be completely miserable, you cannot be completely happy. You talk about specific, in particular, the household life. There's also something you can. Something that applies to material life in general, but also it applies to household life. You have this, one has two extreme expectation approaches to how household life. One will think, oh, I'll be so happy with my wife and my family, and it would be, completely idyllic, and everything will go well, and we'll be so happy. And the other extreme is, how horrible, miserable household life is. It's just hard work for, ungrateful people, wife and children. They like what I call jackals and tigers who are sucking one's blood. And one simply becomes a slave, working for nothing. In the end, they're just waiting for you when you're going to die, so you don't have to, live with this old fossil, this useless old man. Isn't it? There's kind of two extremes. Reality might be closer to the last one. That's one point. But really, as Prabhu writes, you will not be in household life and material life in general. You will never become completely happy, nor will you be completely miserable. It will be, sometimes you will be happy, sometimes miserable. It will come. It's all temporary. So when one actually starts really becoming focused, then one simply, in one sense, observes the passing of time. This is the actual reality, passing of time, which is a form of Krishna. Krishna is time. One sees time passing is what is the only thing that is real. That time is constantly passing, and all these temporary appearances, one naturally loses attachment, just like if you're sitting on a stone in the middle of a river. So you watch so many things coming, the water coming down, things are floating, you see, trees are floating down, objects are floating down, so many things are floating down. You just see. So one life becomes like that, the material opulence like that. It's just things coming floating down the river. And they disappear again. It's not, you can see it's by nature you cannot hold on to them, so you become quite detached, self-situated, and absorbed in Krishna instead. Krishna is there, service to Krishna, Krishna's devotees, maybe not the same devotees, we can, devotees also. We be together right now, we will not be together always, but hopefully we'll always have the association of devotees, but at least we'll have Krishna's holy name. That we've been given the Hare Krishna mantra, that we can hold on to. That's our possession. That we have been given that, because you see, this is my possession, the holy name of Krishna and Krishna's service. This is reality. Everything else is illusory and can never satisfy me. And so one becomes, simply by the process of devotional service and time, one should become more and more simply attached to reality of the holy name, of devotees' association, of Krishna's service, and completely detached from everything else. And that's the qualification that says then one can actually, get Krishna's association, one becomes as opulent maybe as the Lord, but then again, the Lord doesn't think about that. And what does it mean to be opulent as the Lord? If one is serving Krishna, that is opulence in itself. have to happen. One doesn't, other things, they're there. Sometimes they're there, even as devotees. Sometimes we live in more opulent situations. Sometimes devotees are serving Krishna under very seemingly impoverished conditions, but they're very opulent devotees too, simply having service. But they're devotees who live in very poor conditions in some parts of the world. We cursed in this part of the world with material opulence. In some ways, Kali Yuga opulence, but opulence nevertheless, and it's in other places they're cursed or blessed with whatever you may say, with poor conditions. But for the real devotee, for him it doesn't matter. He feels very satisfied in Krishna service, no matter what. What more to say? Do you want to add something? Questions?
Did you speak something about Gaura and Puja?
No, I didn't say anything. One word about Gaura and Puja. Now you do.
Huh?
Now you mention Gaura and Puja. Didn't say anything about Gaura and Puja.
Did you say something about Gaura and Puja? If you want.
Today is Gaura and Puja. Devotees when devotees were there, under Govardhan Hill with Krishna, they had no desires in anything. This is just perfection of life, being here under this hill with Krishna. And they seemed to have lost everything, all there, It was a natural catastrophe. We had refugees who had to, who had to flee from everything. This is a very big thing in the world today. People have lost everything: their home, the land, the nice situation they had, their jobs, everything, their houses. They just had to run for life, just to survive. So, inhabitants of Vrindavan, they were like that. They just barely escaped this massive flood by Krishna's grace, and they were protected by Govardhan Hill. And they're there, and they always think like that, but actually it was like a huge natural disaster that they escaped. And they're simply there, packed together in a temporary shelter. You have these refugees who come, they are just packed in these refugee camps. Not a very happy situation to be there. Often it's very, conditions are very, very poor, not always enough food, diseases, and so on, and a lot of, completely uncertainty about what's going to happen in the future. You're very, within refugee camp, you don't know what the future is going to bring you. You're just surviving from day to day. So actually, it happens in Vrindavan, they were like that. But that we don't hear when we talk. We don't hear about, what a great disaster it is. When it happens in Vrindavan under the Govardhan Hill. We talk about, we just hear about their bliss and their happiness being with Krishna. And actually, that was really, fulfillment of everyone's desires. Actually, nobody, before they were for 7 days, actually all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, they were for 7 days, 7 nights, uninterruptedly, simply gazing at Krishna and had Krishna's association. And that had actually never happened before. Like the cowherd boys were with Krishna in the daytime, but not at night. The gopis had Krishna associated at 8 in the night, but not in the daytime. Yashoda had Krishna's association, in the morning and in the evening when he came back, but not in the daytime. Actually, there was no one who had Krishna's association around the clock, 24 hours a day, except his flute. Therefore, also say that the flute is really special. And it's how can it be that it is just a piece of dead bamboo, but it becomes alive by Krishna's playing on it. And what has this flute done to be so fortunate to be with Krishna all the time? But otherwise, no one is with Krishna all the time. But in Gaura, during Gaura Lila, then they were all together with Krishna. The cowherd boys, the gopis, the old cowherd men, the cowherd women, Nanda, Yashoda, they were just there. And they had no other, that was such a blissful time. I have no desire for anything else, no anxiety for the future. I see that we are all, Krishna is there protecting us. It's a very significant lila, the Gaura and Puja. Revealing a lot about the relationship between Krishna and his great devotees of Vrindavan, and about the nature of the devotees and so on. So many things happening during this time, during these 7 days. Of course, you will later hold the Gaura and Lila, but I think that will be done tonight.
What day is it today? Like today, were they under the hill, or today is the puja that they offered before the lifting?
Is it the day when you don't puja? So I don't know, but I would think that since it's Govardhan Puja, then it's the day of the worship itself. I would logically think that, but I don't think of it like that.
As far as I know, that's actually what the day, and then the next day is when the Krishna will lift Govardhan Hill. This worship of Govardhan Hill was reintroduced by Madhavendra Puri, as far as I understand. Although it's actually the installation of Gopal found by Madhavendra Puri, does that coincide with the Govardhan Puja?
No, exactly, but yes, it is installed for Gopal.
Yeah. And there he had a massive worship of Govardhan also. And Anakuta, so the Anakuta ceremony. But as far as I know, it's a day with Krishna and Ram were worshipping Govardhan Hill, Govardhan Puja.
Or you can also say that's very nice point of taking shelter. That's another nice speech you mentioned about the Govardhan Lila. Also, you may say that this is one of the activities which are extraordinary, the supernatural, wonderful activities of Krishna. Prabhupada, we may say, one other aspect is that this proves that this Krishna, this shows that Krishna is like the Supreme Personality of God, that he can do wonderful things, like God will work among you. So that's the litmus test if you want to imitate Krishna in any other way. At least to try to do this first, try to lift the Govardhan Hill, then you may,
Then you can
think about imitating some of his other leaders,
Then you can dance with other men's wives. Jai Radha Madhava Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Madhava Gopi Jana Madhava Giri Vara Dari. Bhaktivinoda composed that song precisely to put this together, Gopi Jana Madhava and Giri Vara Dari, for that reason. You might think, I also want to be Gopi Jana Madhava. Yes, then you also should be Giri Vara Dari. And of course we can also talk about, atheists, they'll just say, skeptics, they'll say, this is just my mythology, how can that be? How can we believe that a boy will lift a hill like that? And of course, but then, I don't know going to defeat atheists directly because, God is there, that is clear. So, but other religionists, they might say, they will agree to the fact that God is almighty and like that. And say, he's a little boy, and he lifted a big mountain when he was just 7 years old. And said, no, we can't. We cannot believe. That's contradictory in the Bible. If God can do everything, He can also lift a small mountain. Gaura is not so. It was a lot bigger than those days, actually. So, why can't He do? And the point is also that when God comes, isn't that what we expect from Him, to do some, fantastic things? So it's actually it shouldn't come as a surprise that, for example, He lifts a mountain when He actually comes. It is. I think actually we should actually be more suspicious if He didn't do that, or things of a similar nature. Should I want our money back if Krishna? So this is not a real God. Is not someone who just can shake his arms and little ashes comes out of his sleeves or something like that. That's not a real God. Once someone to lift mountains. Krishna did that, and so Krishna can do it. Krishna, God, is almighty, and why shouldn't He do it when He was here? If God is actually here, we must. These are the kind of things that we expect will happen. We do things nobody else can do. So that that's also a discussion worthy on Gaura and Hill. Just the reality of the Leela. Also when we have to also come to, as devotees, we have to not simply be sentimental and it's like that. But when it comes down to it, we really, are pushed against the wall, but we really believe that actually He really lifted. Maybe it's just some mythology or symbolically or something like that. Actually, as devotees, we should be understanding that we talk about real things and understand why it is these things are real. Ultimately, it's real because it's stated in the Shastra. This is real, and then we should also confront our mind or doubts or skepticism, but say, but no, it cannot be possible. And we should also know the arguments why it is definitely possible that it can happen, that these things are happening. Prabhupada puts it very simple that God, He floats planets in space, huge planets with millions of mountains on them, so that He lives about one single mountain. Why is that so fantastic? He's already floating millions of planets in space. He uses the same thing with Lord Ramchandra's building a bridge across the Indian Ocean. The stones afloat, stones have become weightless. How is that possible? But then again, God can do that. Lord Ramchandra also. He's the same God. He can also, planets are floating. just for having a few stones floating on the ocean. That's not more wonderful than, it's already wonderful when planets are floating. So we should also, we should also be aware, be conscious of these arguments and actually be convinced. We cannot just be sentimental in terms of our being Krishna conscious. We have to also know why we are practicing Krishna consciousness. That is very important. Otherwise, one day we'll be confronted. I'm supposed to stop here. I'll just mention one thing briefly. That I had that yesterday talk with some of our supporters and like that who've been coming for many years, and they have some teenage children who are actually have told the parents, we don't believe this. And the parents are very a little desperate, our children, they become atheists actually. The children are saying, we atheists. and they have been coming here for many years. And the parents, they mustn't be convinced, but then they really they're more attached simply to the external. It's the tradition, the Hindus, they like the rituals, the ceremonies, the mood, and all that, which we also like. It is a very nice thing, but why are we doing it? And when it comes down to it, that we cannot really, if we cannot answer that, at one point, not either our children will be confronted, we cannot give it to our children. Like you have a daughter, and she likes to be here, she thinks it's fun, but one day she will start thinking, and if you're not able to answer her, why are we worshipping Krishna? You cannot just say, but it's nice, it makes me feel good. But she can go other places where she also can feel good. We have to be able to explain to both our children and to ourselves, because we also confronted with doubt. Actually, why Krishna is real. Why this is actually, this is true what we read. Why there's life after death and all these things. Therefore, Krishna says that, religion without philosophy is sentimentalism or fanaticism. We have to have both. We have to have, practice religion. All the external things we do, and they're very important. But there has to be philosophy. So we know why we are doing it, so we become strong. This has to be combined, it's very important. And that's actually when Prabhupada, and also remember this when I was training in the beginning here, some days like Gaura, actually more time was spent on discussing, is it actually possible that he did it? And actually why it must be possible, and talking so much about the Leela. And we think that's actually was more discussion. Because that's actually the important point at all level. Okay, Jai. Shiva Bhagavatam Ki. Jai.